Hey folks, welcome to Bear Mountain today. Today we're kind of out in the garden, and one of the things we kind of wanted to show was this has been a really weird year. Normally at this point, most of stuff that would be your summer warm season stuff has been frozen back and is dead. And we've got still things that are still alive. We got straw flowers in the back that are still alive and still trying to bloom. And today is the 17th of December. And we've also still got stevia that's still alive over here. And what's really amazing, swinging back around, is the dahlias have not died back down to the ground. But we're really at a point now where we got to go, you know what, we got to dig these guys out. Because these were gifted to us, these dahlias, by some friends of the channel who saw our original dahlia planting down in the field and said, here, we're going to help you out with some new varieties. And
they also saw the Eastward Garden.
Yeah, Eastward Gardens.
And
folks.
they also saw our dahlia story where we had thousands of dahlias and we're reduced down to, a dozen.
So they graciously gifted us a couple of different varieties. We've got Marn, a new one for us we never had before called Iced Tea, which was really a pretty cool color. Cornell, and then there was another one on the backside called Dark Spirit, which was really kind of a nice deep red. It was kind of
it was almost red burgundy.
Yeah, red burgundy color.
But at times it looked black.
And these were all beautiful, beautiful flowers this year. So
where the originals that we planted in the field didn't work out.
Yeah,
they
grew vegetatively, but we had so much cucumber beetle again. But what was weird is up here is we were really religious up here about using the Jadam solutions and things. And although there were a few cucumber beetles up here, we really didn't have any damage of any significance.
We had blossoms.
Yeah, we had blossoms actually all the way into November.
Right.
So.
And the other thing is that the nice thing was that they were dark fall colors.
Yeah.
And the cucumber beetles tend to go for the light, the pinkies and whites and stuff like that.
The stuff people want to use for a wedding.
Right. And these were fall oriented. And we also put them in later.
Right.
Much later.
So what we want to see today, and I guess, is how well the tops grew really well. How well did they make tubers? And then we want to just kind of harvest a few of these guys and show you how we do it, how we clean them up and set them up for storage. So we'll be planting them back in the ground again after we divide them up next spring in probably early May-ish.
Actually,
usually.
These didn't go in until
these were late.
July.
Because we got them
and we just
later.
grew them on for a while.
Yep.
But we planted them in July with the idea, if we'll just planting them for the tubers. So anyway, they and we just were going to grow them for tubers, and it turned out they were just kept blooming and blooming. We had a very nice autumn, and they kept blooming and blooming, and so it was like that was kind of a success.
Yep.
We just didn't have a lot of them to offer to designers or anything like that, but we totally enjoyed them in the house.
Yeah, so I think what we're going to try to do is kind of take these guys. These are all good varieties. We'll try to save as them for next year, and then try to kind of grow them out a little more. And definitely we'll be using the Jadam stuff next year to kind of work on them. And so what I'm going to do here is just kind of show you. This one here I'm working on is Marn.
Which is a fabulous
orange ball.
Dahlia.
Orange isn't really truly it.
It just goes and goes and goes. It's fabulous. Holds up really well. It's been one of our all-time favorites, and I'm glad that they sent us more.
Yep. Okay. So one of the things about dahlias is you'll notice that the stems are actually hollow. They have most of the growth on the top after you get past like the first 3 to 4 inches out of the ground. They tend to grow on a hollow basis. So if you're trying to store these in ground, one of the things you want to make sure you do is cut the stem. I probably should have had my loppers to do this, but you want to cut the stems. You see, even down at this level here, it's still hollow. And that's what you want to kind of avoid. You want to keep cutting down till you get to the solid part. And that would be, you know, less likely to get rot to go down. Because what happens is rot tends to start to build in here. And I can already see where there was some, you just are just an imp. I already can see where there's some darkness in here. It's not really rot at this point, but that is, that's, if you want to lose your tubers, that's a great way to do it if you're storing them in place. You got to get it down to where the stem is solid.
Or can you bury them?
You can heavily, if you're not in an area where your ground freezes or where the ground will flood in the winter time, you can store them in place. Like in a raised bed, you would mulch it, probably 6 inches deep, use straw, leaves, things of that nature. And there's various different techniques to do it. As a matter of fact, there's a great flower grower, Love and Fresh Flowers, Jenny Love, has been doing it for years in Pennsylvania. And I think she's even got blog entries that kind of show, you know, how that process works. In our case today, though, we're not going to be doing that. We're going to be digging this guy up.
Mostly because we just want more tubers
because
to
we want to divide it, yeah. So let me just get rid of these things in here. You might think are grass, but they're not. They're actually volunteer elephant garlic.
So
started from seed. So.
I always say, do we need to plant more garlic?
No, and what we do is we'll use these kinds of things in salads, so they really come out, you know, giving it kind of a little bit of a spicy, garlicky taste. Elephant garlic is in the leek family, so it's kind of got that kind of flavor. Okay, Kat, you're gonna have to move, bud.
But I want to be in the action.
Okay, what I want to be careful here is this ground is actually pretty soft, but I want to just make sure that I'm underneath the plant so that I lift it. And I can kind of hear the roots going snippy, snappity, snip. There we go. And then I'm going to go around the plant and just kind of gently try to lift it out of the ground. All right, got a lot of, see, our soil's pretty heavy, so we tend to get a lot of sticky soil to it. If you're blessed with growing dahlias in sandy, silty soil, you can sometimes just lift the guys out and never have to worry about, you know, taking half your garden with it. In this particular case, though, I want to make certain that I don't cause a problem like snap the tubers, and just kind of gently work the dirt off of it. And the elephant garlic. I'll get it to a point where I'll get most of it off, and then I'll gently use a stream of water. You know, sometimes, you know, some of the tubers will get snapped, but you can see this guy's put on a fair amount of tubers for being planted as late as it was. Now this was all in a no-till bed, so it did pretty good. But evidently now I'm tilling it.
Yeah, I was going to say, by digging dahlias, there's no way around it.
There's no way around it, yeah. See, like I snapped that guy off. That was a mistake. Whoops. And when you bust something like that off, you bust the eyes off, it's not going to grow anything, so you can just...
But you'll look at it to make sure, right?
Well, I know it's way past where the eyes are, because...
Oh, it was out on the outside.
Right. Because, see, you can begin to see, here's the basic plant. I got most of it worked off as gently as I could. Okay, so here's your basic plant. And what I do for storage is I'm going to wash this guy gently and get any of the excess off. And then I'm going to cut it right about here. And I'll probably, in this case of the size of this clump, I'll split it in half, and that's how I'll store it. Because when you store these guys, you want to store them in something that, you know, keeps them from desiccating out. And you want to keep them stored below 55, preferably right around 40 is a great way to store these guys and keep them in dormancy. If you store them someplace warm that gets above 50, 55, they're going to start sprouting probably long before you would want to plant them outside. So that's something to, you know, really consider. But each one of these guys, some of them do have eyes, and the eyes are going to form very close to where the neck of the tuber goes into the part of the main plant. So let's just take a quick break here and I'll wash this guy off and you'll be able to see more. Okay, this is kind of your typical clump on a lot of dahlias. And sometimes you're going to get kind of damage, you know, like from when you're digging out, tips break off or something like that. If the tuber itself is still okay, these feeder roots on the outside, they're not going to do anything except desiccate off. So you can just go ahead and cut them off. You know, they're just kind of extraneous anyway. So don't worry about that. As long as you don't cut into the main tuber itself. You know, the whole point is you're just trying to get it so that kind of extraneous stuff is gone. And then the question is always, people go, well, what's a good tuber to keep and what's not? Now, some of these little guys like this, they don't look very like they got a very tough skin on them, but they do have, all dahlia tubers basically begin to form their eyes right close to the base of the stem. And so these clumps, you can kind of see them at this time of year, where the next eyes for what's going to grow next year is. And then sometimes you'll see an actual tuber that's next to the stem and there's no visible eyes at all. The chances are pretty good that one never developed anything. Although it's a good storage tuber, it's not necessarily going to give you a plant next year. So what we do is we'll go in and we'll cut off this extraneous part of the stem that we talked about. And again, this is the part that when you don't have loppers, it kind of makes things a little difficult. I'm kind of really putting these Felcos to the work here. And what I'm going to do is this time of year is when it's green, it's a lot easier to cut, even if you have loppers. You can see,
don't have loppers.
Or don't have loppers. But you can see this is now a solid stem. And so what I'm going to do is, you can use a knife or you can use, you know, clippers or something, whatever makes sense. I'm going to use a knife that I have on my Leatherman here and just kind of go through. And the idea is, what I want to do is split this at minimum in half, but probably realistically, I'm going to try for thirds or even quarters. And sometimes, you know, you might end up going, oh man, I damaged a tuber. Well, don't worry about it too much because it's never, you know, perfect.
That's a lot of tubers for just one year.
Right, this is one plant. See, now in order to cut this thing, what I'm doing is I'm actually damaging a tuber that's, you know, sitting almost directly below, but that's okay. I'll just take that as a loss. There. Now we split this guy apart. And why it's important to kind of check your tubers too, to make certain you don't have any like hidden bugs in it, or maybe a tuber that actually has rot. You don't want to store anything that feels soft or squishy or looks damaged. You know, like this guy right here, I'm just going to clip this off because, frankly,
it's a wound.
It's a pretty major wound. It goes all the way deep into the tuber itself. So, and then what I'm going to do is cut this one more time. See if I can do this right here. And just kind of work it apart. And these two guys right here, looks like I probably damaged that one, so I'll cut that one off. Okay, so these guys I'll store, and this is probably what I'll plant next year on this one. Probably wouldn't divide it anymore.
See the eyes?
Yeah, you can see the eyes. They're right around the base, right against the stem itself. They're right there. So this is probably pretty good. Now, this one might end up being divided again next spring before we plant, but for storage purposes, you know, we'll just store it as is. I'm going to let these guys dry a little bit too before I stick them away into storage itself. And sometimes you might have a nick on something that's not that big of a deal. It'll heal over, because this whole clump, actually that one's neck is broken, so I'm going to take it off. That's the other thing too, is you want to make sure you don't break the necks of these guys. But you can see like this right here, these are all the eyes right here. So there's tons of eyes right here. This will make a great clump to plant next spring, and probably there's no rot or anything in it, and it should store really well. So that's kind of the level we take them down to. So I've already got 2 plants right there. There's a good third one right here.
And your plant going to store them in leaves?
Yeah, well, you know, here's the thing is, you can store them in any medium that will kind of retain a little bit of moisture.
But not enough to
But not
rot.
enough that you know, they're going to sprout. What you're trying to do is keep them from desiccating. So if you had like, you know, dampened shredded cardboard or something like that, you know, as long as it's not too wet, I'm not talking like worm bin type wet, but just damp enough to hold moisture. Or some people use like bedding wood chips from like, you know, that you have for you know, pets.
Pets and stalls.
And stalls, stuff like that, sawdust.
Right.
Anything that will keep the tubers from desiccating out. So like that's a nice good clump too. There's lots of eyes on it. This will definitely get split again next year. So I've already got 3 so far out of this.
One initial first time plant.
Right.
We're already got 3, so that's good.
Right. And here's a 4th. I'm looking in here and see what's damaged. Like this guy right here at the bottom was damaged, so I'm going to take that off. Oh, cats. But here's another one. There's lots of eyes on it. That's pretty good shape. This guy is a clump ready to go, pretty good shape. So out of that one plant, you know, just for storage purposes, we got 5.
And they might be more.
Yeah, because like next spring, depending on how, you know, it stores, you know, you can take it down even further. So we could maybe even double this and get like 10 new marn plants out of it by the time we're ready to plant.
We also have a couple marns down below that we got to dig at.
Right. The key to it is don't store things that are damaged. Don't store things that got bugs in it. Look for anything that's got rot. Get rid of it. Slugs, etc. You don't want to store any kind of bugs with it. The leaves we're using were kind of stored dry, so they got a little moisture into them. I put a cardboard in the bottom of the crate, and that should be good enough. So I'll just, you know, store them in this, and then what I'll do is put over the top once these guys dry up a little bit for an hour or 2. I'll put more. Well, I'm going to do 1 crate for each variety, but I'll put a little more over the top, and then we'll stick it in our cooler and keep it at about 40 degrees. Check on them on a regular basis, meaning like, you know, when you go in once a week or every so, go in and check to make sure there's nothing rotting. If you see anything rotting or desiccating out, you need to get rid of it, because it will negatively impact whatever else you got stored with it. And that's really it. It's not a complicated thing. It's easier to cut them now. Like I said, it's easier to take a big clump and cut it now when you dig it out of the ground than when that stem dries out, because when that stem dries out, it gets rock hard. So, and that makes it very difficult. I've sometimes had to use actually almost a small hatchet to, you know, whack into it when it's dry.
But there are people that do not, they don't divide until the spring.
Yeah,
so,
the final division is a lot easier once it's broken up like this, though. I mean, you can easily get a pair of Falcos into it.
They can't store huge clumps.
No.
You know, so
it does take space.
It takes space, so you can do it now or do it in the spring, whichever way you're comfortable.
When we were raising these things on a cut flower basis for a lot of, we were cutting them really down to almost, you know, maybe 1 or 2 tubers, and you know, taking it down pretty good. And that way we could get more per storage container in the cooler, because we were putting away, what, 4,000 or 5,000, something like that.
Yeah. Well, at one point, didn't we get up to 9? Yeah,
I think our last year, actually in the ground, I think our highest year was actually 4,000 in the ground. So now we maybe put 5,000 away.
I thought we had 9,000 that we lost.
You know, it's like fishing. It just, when you're growing dahlias, yeah, well, God, maybe only that much. But
I thought I remember 9,000.
I just remember spending a lot of time dividing dahlias. So
yeah, one year we dug them in November, hosed them off, brought them into the garage, and you spent all the way till like the end of February.
Yeah, it was like my evenings for a long time. I spent every evening in the garage dividing dahlias.
And it was like at a certain point you just said, I hate dahlias.
Yeah. It's not, I mean, we're never going to go that big again, but this is a great way just for the home gardener to do this. So the key to it is don't get hung up on what you need to store it in, you know. Use what makes sense for keeping something with a little bit of moisture, keeping them from desiccating, and getting enough air around them so that if there is moisture in it, it doesn't compact down and become anaerobic. That's a bad thing to happen too. That can happen.
But you also, the other thing is you have to go and check on them.
Yes.
You can't just store them away and never look back at them.
Yeah.
You gotta kind of keep your eye on them.
Right, and especially the longer you go, you know, past winter, you get into March, they've been in storage for 3 or 4 months. You gotta really kind of be aware that you still got maybe a couple months left before you can stick them in the ground. So, yeah, you got to work on that. And that's basically it. We're just going to go through and take these varieties out and store them up in some crates and wish for the best for next year.
Yep.
So, Mrs. Producer, any questions?
I don't think so. I think we've covered everything.
Okay, any advice on how to control cats?
No, because I'm being scratched as we film right now. They're crawling on me and sitting next to me and bumping me and
Miss Carrots.
clawing me.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a gratuitous portion of trying to add something cute to the video. So hope you enjoyed that. Anyway, folks,
they're cute.
Stay safe out there, and we'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.